The alarm system screamed through the corridors of the Centauri research station as Dr. Zethkar rushed toward the observation deck. His four eyes blinked rapidly as he tried to process what the sensors were telling him. Something had just appeared out of nowhere near the outer perimeter, and it was moving toward them at impossible speeds. "Administrator Velther, we have a problem," Dr. Zethkar called through his communication device. His voice carried the panic that was building in his chest. "The monitoring systems show a vessel approaching from the Sol system." The response came immediately. "That's impossible, Doctor. The inhabitants of that system are barely capable of basic radio transmission. They're centuries away from space travel." Dr. Zethkar checked his instruments again, hoping he had made an error. The readings remained the same. A metallic vessel, roughly 200 meters in length, was approaching their station. Its design was crude compared to galactic standards, but it was definitely a spacecraft. More importantly, it was definitely from the third planet of the Sol system. "Sir, the vessel is requesting permission to dock," reported Technician Mordix from the communication station. "They're using basic mathematical sequences and simple pictographs. It appears to be a peaceful contact attempt." Administrator Velther arrived at the observation deck within minutes. His tall, thin frame moved with the grace typical of his species, but his usual calm demeanor was replaced by obvious concern. "Show me the vessel," he commanded. The main screen flickered to life, displaying the approaching human ship. It was angular and functional, with no aesthetic considerations visible in its construction. Burns and scratches covered its hull, suggesting it had traveled through dangerous conditions to reach them. Most disturbing of all, it showed clear signs of having been built to withstand extreme stress. What classification did we assign to their homeworld? Administrator Velther asked. Dr. Zethkar consulted his records. "Class 7 Deathworld, sir. High gravity, toxic atmosphere, extreme weather patterns, and dangerous biological life. Standard parameters for a world that might eventually produce sapient life, but nothing unusual." The human vessel docked with surprising skill. Its occupants requested permission to board, and after a brief debate, Administrator Velther agreed to allow 3 representatives to come aboard. The first contact protocols were activated, and the station's medical bay was prepared to handle potentially hazardous alien biology. Captain Jake Morrison was the first human to step onto the station. He was followed by Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez and Engineer Pete Hamilton. All 3 wore simple environmental suits that appeared to be designed for much harsher conditions than the station's controlled atmosphere. Dr. Zethkar observed them through the medical bay's transparent walls. The humans were bipedal, similar to several known species, but their physical structure was immediately concerning. Their bone density readings were off the charts. Their muscle mass suggested they had developed under crushing gravitational forces. Their cardiovascular systems showed adaptations for extreme physical stress. "These readings can't be correct," Dr. Zethkar muttered as he ran the medical scanners for the 3rd time. "No species could survive with this level of biological stress." "Captain." Morrison removed his helmet and smiled at the assembled alien scientists. His teeth were clearly designed for tearing flesh, and his eyes showed the alertness of a predator. When he spoke, his voice carried easily through the station's thin atmosphere. "Greetings from Earth," he said in carefully practiced galactic standard. "We come in peace and friendship. We hope to establish positive relations with your civilization." "Doctor." Zethkar noticed that the human barely seemed to notice the low gravity of the station. While most species required time to adjust to gravitational changes, Captain Morrison moved as if he had been born in this environment. The other humans showed similar adaptations. "Captain Morrison," Administrator Velther said through the translation matrix, "we are honored by your visit. However, we must ask how your species developed faster than light travel. Our observations suggested you were still in the early stages of technological development." The human laughed, a sound that seemed both friendly and somehow dangerous. "We've been working on space travel for about a century. Nuclear fusion gave us the power we needed, and we figured out how to fold space about 30 years ago. It took us a while to build a ship that could handle the stress of interstellar travel," Lieutenant Rodriguez stepped forward. Captain, should I show them the mission briefing? Captain Morrison nodded. They should know what they're dealing with. The briefing that followed changed everything Dr. Zethkar thought he knew about the galaxy. The humans described their homeworld in casual terms that made the alien scientists increasingly uncomfortable. They spoke of ice ages that lasted thousands of years, asteroid impacts that destroyed most life on the planet, and volcanic eruptions that blocked out the sun for decades. Your species survived these events? Dr. Zethkar asked in disbelief. Engineer Hamilton nodded. We didn't just survive them, we learned from them. The ice ages taught us to work together and plan for the future. The asteroid impacts showed us the importance of having backup plans. The volcanic eruptions helped us develop better agriculture and food storage techniques. The medical scans continued to provide impossible results. The humans' immune systems showed evidence of surviving countless diseases and environmental toxins. Their nervous systems demonstrated adaptations for processing extreme stress and making rapid decisions under pressure. Their digestive systems could apparently handle foods that would poison most galactic species. We need to understand your world better, Administrator Velther said carefully. Would you be willing to share information about your planet's conditions? Captain. Morrison seemed happy to comply. Earth has a gravitational force about 1.3 times what you have here. Our atmosphere is about 21% oxygen, which I understand is pretty high by galactic standards. We have weather systems that generate winds up to 300 kilometers per hour and electrical storms that can power entire cities. Dr. Zethkar felt his breathing apparatus malfunction for a moment. Captain, that level of atmospheric oxygen would fuel fires that could consume continents. How do you prevent global combustion? The human looked confused. We don't prevent it. Forest fires are natural. They clear out old growth and make room for new plants. We just build our cities in places where fires are less likely, and we have systems to control them when they get too big. Lieutenant Rodriguez added, we also have earthquakes, tsunamis, hurricanes, tornadoes, and volcanic eruptions. But you learn to live with them. You build stronger structures, develop better warning systems, and always have evacuation plans ready. The implications were staggering. Dr. Zethkar realized that everything he thought he knew about Deathworld classifications was wrong. The humans hadn't just survived on a Class 7 world. They had thrived on a planet that was beyond anything in the galactic classification system. Doctor, Administrator Velther said quietly, I think we need to contact the Galactic Council immediately. These beings have just made our entire understanding of hostile worlds obsolete. Dr. Zethkar nodded, still staring at the impossible medical readings. The humans continued to chat casually about their homeworld, describing conditions that would kill most galactic species within hours. They spoke of their planet with obvious affection, calling it beautiful and peaceful. As the first day of contact ended, Dr. Zethkar began preparing his report. He knew that the Galactic Council would never believe what he was about to tell them. The humans had just broken every scale the galaxy used to measure hostile worlds, and they had done it so thoroughly that an entirely new classification system would need to be created. The emergency session of the Galactic Council's Threat Assessment Division began 3 days after Dr. Zethkar's initial report reached the capital world. Fleet Admiral Korthax of the Hegemony Defense Forces sat at the head of the massive circular chamber, his 6 arms moving nervously as he reviewed the impossible data for the 100th time. Colleagues, Admiral Korthax announced to the assembled representatives, we face a situation that has never occurred in our recorded history. A species has made contact with us from a world that should not be able to support intelligent life. The chamber filled with the sounds of 12 different species expressing doubt and concern. Dr. Prexanon, the Council's leading evolutionary biologist, raised her primary speaking appendage. Admiral, I have reviewed the medical data 3 times. These readings suggest the humans come from a world with conditions that would kill most of our species within hours. The holographic display activated, showing Earth's basic statistics. The assembled representatives fell silent as they absorbed the information. The planet's gravity was higher than most civilized worlds. Its atmospheric composition included dangerous levels of oxygen. Its weather patterns generated storms that could devastate entire continents. The gravity alone, Dr. Prexanon continued, should have prevented the development of complex neural networks. High-gravity worlds typically produce simple, heavily armored creatures that focus on survival rather than intelligence. Administrator Velther, who had traveled from the Centauri station specifically for this meeting, stood to address the assembly. The humans display no signs of intellectual limitation. Their technology is crude by our standards, but it shows remarkable innovation. They developed faster-than-light travel independently, something only 7 species in our records have achieved. The human delegation had arrived on the capital world that morning. Ambassador Lisa Chun, a middle-aged woman with graying hair and calm eyes, waited in the diplomatic quarters along with Marine Colonel Danny Walsh and Science Officer Katie Brown. The Council had requested a formal presentation about Earth and human development. "Bring them in," Admiral Korthax commanded. The 3 humans entered the chamber with easy confidence. Ambassador Chin walked directly to the center of the room, showing no signs of intimidation despite being surrounded by alien species that towered over her. Colonel Walsh and Officer Brown flanked her, their posture alert but relaxed. "Honored representatives," Ambassador Chun began, "we are grateful for this opportunity to speak with you. We bring greetings from Earth and hope to establish peaceful relations with your civilizations." Dr. Prexanon leaned forward. "Ambassador, we need to understand how your species developed on such a hostile world. Our models suggest that high-gravity worlds produce simple life forms, not complex civilizations." Ambassador Chun smiled. "Earth's gravity isn't particularly high by our standards. It's just what we're used to. Our ancestors adapted to it over millions of years. Strong bones and muscles became advantages for survival." "But the atmospheric composition," interrupted Counselor Threshmack of the Vegan Collective, "your oxygen levels should cause constant fires." Science Officer Brown stepped forward. "They do cause fires. Forest fires are natural on Earth. They clear dead vegetation and help new plants grow. We learned to work with fire instead of fearing it. We use controlled burns to manage our forests and prevent larger fires." The chamber erupted in nervous chatter. The idea of deliberately setting fires to prevent bigger fires was beyond the comprehension of most species. Their worlds were carefully controlled environments where such natural disasters were prevented through technology, Colonel Walsh added. "We also learned to use fire as a tool. Controlled fire helped us cook food, stay warm, and eventually develop metallurgy. Fire was one of our first technologies." Admiral Korthax felt his breathing apparatus working harder. "Colonel, you're telling us that your species learned to control one of the most destructive forces in nature and use it as a basic tool?" "Yes, sir," Colonel Walsh replied. "Fire, controlled flooding, even controlled avalanches. We learned that natural forces are more manageable when you work with them instead of against them." The questions continued for hours. The humans described their planet's history with casual ease, explaining concepts that terrified the assembled aliens. They spoke of ice ages that lasted thousands of years, during which their ancestors learned to preserve food and build insulated shelters. They described volcanic eruptions that blocked the sun for years, forcing their species to develop diverse food sources and efficient agriculture. "Your species survived global winter conditions?" Dr. Prexanon asked in disbelief. Ambassador Chun nodded. "Multiple times. Each ice age taught us something new. We learned to plan for the future, to store resources, and to work together. The species that survived were the ones that could cooperate and share knowledge." The most disturbing revelation came when the humans described their biological diversity. Earth hosted millions of species, many of which would be classified as dangerous predators on any civilized world. The humans had learned to coexist with creatures that could kill them easily. "We domesticated some of the predators," Science Officer Brown explained. "Wolves became dogs, our companions and helpers. Wild cats became house cats, our friends and pest controllers. We learned that even dangerous animals could become allies if we understood their needs. Counselor Yuldara of the Archive Collective spoke carefully. You're saying that your species deliberately brought predators into your living spaces? They weren't predators to us anymore, Ambassador Chun replied. They became family members. Dogs helped us hunt and protected our settlements. Cats controlled the small animals that ate our stored food. We evolved together. The implications were staggering. The humans had not just survived on a death world. They had formed partnerships with dangerous species, learned to control destructive natural forces, and developed technologies that worked with hostile environments. Instead of against them, Dr. Prexanon requested a recess to analyze the data. The council members retreated to their private chambers, leaving the humans alone in the Great Hall. The three representatives from Earth sat quietly, apparently unbothered by the chaos they had caused. Do you think they understand what they've told us? Admiral Korthax asked Dr. Prexanon privately. I don't think they realize how extraordinary their development is, the scientist replied. To them, surviving multiple extinction events and partnering with predators is normal. They have no reference point for how unusual their world is. When the session resumed, the council faced a fundamental question. The humans had just described a world that exceeded every parameter in their classification system. Earth wasn't just a Class 7 death world. It was something entirely new. Ambassador Chun, Admiral Korthax said formally, the Council needs time to process this information. Your world appears to require a classification that does not currently exist in our systems. Ambassador Chun looked puzzled. Is that a problem? We're happy to provide more information if it would be helpful. The casual offer to provide more information about their impossibly hostile world made several council members visibly uncomfortable. Dr. Prexanon realized that the humans had probably shared only the basic facts about their planet. The full reality was likely even more extreme than what they had heard. We will need to create new classification standards, Admiral Korthax announced. The Galactic Council will vote on whether to establish a Class 11 designation for worlds that exceed our current parameters. As the session ended, the humans were escorted back to their quarters. They seemed pleased with the meeting, unaware that they had just forced the galaxy to reconsider everything it thought it knew about hostile worlds and the life they could produce. The Galactic Council's emergency session entered its second week as representatives from 847 member species continued to debate the impossible problem that humanity had presented. Chief Counselor Threshmack stood before the massive assembly, his tentacles moving in patterns that showed deep concern. Fellow beings, he announced, we have reached a point in our discussion where we must make a fundamental decision. Do we modify our existing classification system, or do we acknowledge that these humans come from a world so hostile that it requires an entirely new category? The human delegation had grown during the extended session. Dr. Robert Kim, a geologist from Earth, sat beside Ambassador Chun, while Captain Helen Parker, a military strategist, reviewed notes on her portable device. The aliens had requested additional expertise to help them understand the full scope of Earth's conditions. Dr. Prexanon activated the holographic display, showing Earth's geological data. The seismic activity alone should prevent stable civilization. This world experiences thousands of earthquakes daily, many of which would level our cities. Dr. Kim stood to respond. Most of our earthquakes are small and barely noticeable. We've learned to build structures that can handle the movement. In regions with major seismic activity, we use flexible foundations and materials that bend instead of breaking. The casual way Dr. Kim described living with constant ground movement disturbed many council members. Counselor Velanash of the Silicon Collective spoke through his translation device. Doctor, you're saying your species builds homes knowing they will shake violently? We build them specifically because they will shake, Dr. Kim replied. Static structures break during earthquakes. Flexible structures survive. We learned this lesson thousands of years ago when we started building in seismically active areas. Captain Parker added, we also have early warning systems. When we detect the first signs of a major earthquake, we can evacuate dangerous areas. and shut down critical systems. Most earthquake damage comes from being unprepared. The discussion moved to Earth's weather patterns. The data showed atmospheric conditions that would be considered natural disasters on any civilized world. Hurricane-force winds, electrical storms with enough power to supply entire cities, and temperature variations that span dozens of degrees. Your species experiences regular storms with winds exceeding 200 kilometers per hour? Asked Administrator Jexstar from the Weather Monitoring Division. Ambassador Chun nodded. We call them hurricanes, typhoons, or cyclones depending on where they occur. We've learned to predict their paths and prepare for them. People evacuate dangerous areas, and we have emergency supplies ready. But the destruction, Administrator Jexstar continued, surely these storms devastate your settlements? Dr. Kim pulled up images on his device. They can cause damage, but we rebuild stronger. Each storm teaches us something new about construction and preparation. Our coastal cities are designed to handle storm surge, and our emergency response systems have been refined over centuries. The revelation that humans considered catastrophic storms to be learning opportunities rather than existential threats created another wave of concerned discussion among the council members. Senior Archivist Yoldara requested more information about human historical development. We need to understand how your species developed psychologically, she announced. Most species that face constant natural disasters become risk-averse and build heavily defensive civilizations. Your species appears to have developed the opposite response. Captain Parker stood to address this question. We learned early that you can't prevent natural disasters, but you can prepare for them. Trying to build walls against hurricanes or earthquakes just creates bigger problems when they fail. It's better to be flexible and adapt. This adaptive strategy, Captain Parker continued, influenced our entire civilization. We developed redundant systems, mobile populations, and diverse resource bases. When one area faces problems, other areas can provide support. The military implications were particularly concerning to Fleet Admiral Corthax. Captain Parker, this adaptive strategy you describe sounds like advanced military doctrine. Did your species develop these concepts through warfare? Captain Parker's expression became more serious. We had wars, yes. Many of them. But we learned that the same principles that help you survive natural disasters also help you survive conflicts. Flexibility, redundancy, and rapid response work in both situations. The council members exchanged worried glances. The humans were describing a species that had been naturally trained in advanced military concepts through their everyday survival requirements. Dr. Prexon requested more information about human conflict resolution. We need to understand your species' approach to violence, she said carefully. Your physical adaptations suggest you evolved as predators, and your survival strategies suggest military training. How do you handle conflicts between your own kind? Ambassador Chun took this question. We learned that cooperation is more effective than competition for long-term survival. Groups that work together survive natural disasters better than groups that fought each other. Over time, we developed systems for resolving conflicts without violence. But you said you had wars, Admiral Corthax pressed. We did, Captain Parker confirmed. But we learned from them. Each war taught us something about the costs of conflict and the benefits of cooperation. We developed better diplomatic systems, international law, and eventually global institutions for maintaining peace. The idea that a species could learn from warfare and develop better peaceful systems was revolutionary to many council members. Most civilizations either avoided conflict entirely or developed increasingly sophisticated weapons. The humans had somehow transformed their military experience into improved diplomacy. Dr. Rachel Stone, a human anthropologist who had joined the delegation, provided additional context. Our species faced so many external threats that internal conflicts became counterproductive. We couldn't waste energy fighting each other when we needed to work together to survive ice ages, plagues, and natural disasters. The breakthrough moment came when Dr. Stone introduced the concept of adaptive pressure. She explained that each catastrophic event in Earth's history had eliminated individuals and groups that couldn't adapt, while strengthening those that could. Over millions of years, this process had created a species that was naturally skilled at surviving extreme conditions. "You're describing artificial selection on a planetary scale," Dr. Prexanon said in amazement. "Your world didn't just host life, it actively shaped life into increasingly resilient forms." "Exactly," Dr. Stone confirmed. "Every disaster was also an opportunity. The survivors of each catastrophe were stronger, smarter, and more cooperative than the previous generation. Earth didn't just create life. It forged life into something capable of surviving anything." Chief Counselor Thresmak called for a formal vote. The question was no longer whether to reclassify Earth, but how to categorize a world that had actively created an apex species through constant disaster and challenge. "The Council will now vote on Resolution 447B, he announced. The creation of a Class 11 Deathworld designation with the subcategory of Forge World for planets that create rather than simply host extreme life forms. The vote was unanimous. Every species recognized that humanity had just proven the existence of worlds so hostile that they didn't just challenge life, they actively improved it. Earth would become the first officially designated Forge World in galactic history. As the session ended, Ambassador Chun approached Chief Counselor Thresmak privately. "Counselor, I hope this classification doesn't create problems for our diplomatic relations." The ancient being looked at her with something approaching awe. "Ambassador, your species has just taught us that the universe is far more dangerous and far more wonderful than we ever imagined. That's not a problem, that's a gift." The news of Earth's Class 11 Forge World designation spread through galactic civilization like wildfire. Within 3 months, every major government, military organization, and research institution was requesting meetings with human representatives. The implications of humanity's existence had created fundamental changes in how the galaxy understood survival, warfare, and civilization itself. Fleet Admiral Korthax stood in the war room of the Hegemony Defense Forces headquarters studying tactical displays that showed the galaxy's most dangerous regions. Beside him, Colonel Danny Walsh pointed to areas of space that had been considered uninhabitable for centuries. "Colonel, your species would actually consider these regions suitable for exploration?" Admiral Korthax asked, his voice carrying disbelief. Colonel Walsh examined the radiation readings, temperature variations, and gravitational anomalies that marked the forbidden zones. "These conditions are challenging, but not impossible. We've dealt with similar environments on Earth. The radiation levels are high, but not beyond our medical countermeasures. The temperature swings are extreme, but our equipment can handle them." Captain Helen Parker, who had been assigned as the primary military liaison, activated a holographic display showing human military history. "Admiral, we've been dealing with hostile environments for our entire existence. These space regions present new challenges, but the basic principles are the same. The Hegemony Defense Forces had been struggling with increased piracy in the outer systems. Criminal organizations were using the harsh conditions of unexplored space to hide their operations, knowing that galactic military forces couldn't pursue them into those regions. The discovery that humans could operate in such environments was revolutionary. "Show me your defensive strategies," Admiral Korthax requested. Captain Parker began explaining human military doctrine, starting with basic concepts that seemed obvious to her but were revolutionary to the alien military leaders. "We assume that any plan will encounter problems, so we build in multiple backup options. We call this redundancy. If one approach fails, we have others ready." "But that seems inefficient," commented General Vexstar, the Hegemony's chief strategist. "Why not perfect one approach instead of maintaining multiple inferior ones?" Colonel Walsh stepped forward. "Because perfect systems fail catastrophically when they encounter something they weren't designed for. Multiple adequate systems survive when perfect systems break down. The humans demonstrated this principle using historical examples from Earth. They showed how civilizations that relied on single food sources failed during climate changes. while civilizations with diverse food sources survived. They explained how military forces that relied on single tactics were defeated by enemies who adapted, while forces that could change tactics quickly won victories. "This is why our exploration missions succeed," Captain Parker added. "We don't send out perfect ships with perfect plans. We send out adaptable ships with adaptable crews who can handle whatever they encounter." The economic implications were equally profound. Dr. Martinez, a human economist, found herself addressing the Galactic Trade Council about resource management under extreme conditions. The aliens had developed sophisticated systems for managing resources in stable environments, but they struggled with the unpredictable conditions of frontier worlds. "Your species has experience with resource scarcity?" asked Trade Director Muldara, a being whose species had never experienced true shortage. "We faced scarcity many times," Dr. Martinez replied. "Ice ages, droughts, famines, and resource depletion. Each time, we learned to be more efficient with what we had and to develop alternative sources." Dr. Martinez explained concepts that were foreign to most galactic civilizations. Recycling, conservation, and sustainable development were strategies that humans had developed out of necessity. When resources became scarce, they had learned to use them more efficiently rather than simply finding new sources. "You're telling us that your species deliberately limits resource consumption even when resources are abundant?" Trade Director Muldara asked in confusion. "We learned that abundance is temporary," Dr. Martinez explained. "Resources that seem unlimited today might be gone tomorrow. It's better to use them wisely from the beginning than to face scarcity later." The psychological impact of humanity's existence was perhaps the most significant change. Dr. Martinez found herself working with the Galactic Council's diplomatic corps to address the existential crisis that many species were experiencing. The knowledge that humans existed had forced entire civilizations to reconsider their place in the universe. "Many of our member species are experiencing what you might call performance anxiety," explained Chief Diplomat Render. "They're questioning whether their own achievements have any meaning if your species considers extreme survival to be normal." Dr. Martinez had anticipated this problem. "Every species develops according to their environment and needs. We're not inherently better than anyone else. We're just specialized for different conditions." She worked with alien psychologists to develop counseling techniques for species that were struggling with the revelation that the universe was far more dangerous than they had realized. The key insight was that diversity of adaptation was a strength, not a weakness. Your species developed advanced mathematics, art, and philosophy under peaceful conditions. Dr. Martinez explained to a group of concerned diplomats, "We developed survival skills under hostile conditions. A galaxy needs both types of development." The most dramatic changes occurred in the Galactic Exploration Guild. For centuries, vast regions of space had been considered too dangerous for investigation. The Guild had marked these areas as forbidden zones and focused their efforts on safer regions. The arrival of humans changed everything. Engineer Pete Hamilton stood before the Guild's directors, explaining human engineering principles that were revolutionizing spacecraft design. "We build everything to handle conditions worse than we expect to encounter. If we think we'll face 100-degree temperatures, we build for 150-degree temperatures. But that requires additional resources and weight," objected Chief Engineer Colvex. "The additional cost is less than the cost of mission failure," Hamilton replied. "A ship that can handle unexpected conditions will complete more missions successfully than a ship that's optimized for perfect conditions." The Guild began redesigning their exploration vessels using human engineering principles. The new ships were heavier and more expensive, but they could survive in environments that would destroy conventional galactic vessels within months' exploration. Missions were reaching regions that had been inaccessible for centuries. The most significant development was the establishment of joint human-alien exploration teams. Human crew members could survive in conditions that would kill most aliens, while alien crew members provided technological expertise and cultural knowledge that humans lacked. Captain Lisa Martinez, who had been assigned to lead the first joint mission, stood on the bridge of the redesigned exploration vessel Horizon. Around her, alien crew members worked alongside human engineers to prepare for their journey into the Maelstrom region, an area of space that had been considered uninhabitable for over 1,000 years. "Captain," reported Science Officer Temver, a crystalline being whose species excelled at sensor analysis, "we're detecting energy signatures that suggest the presence of ancient ruins in the target system." Captain Martinez smiled as she watched her mixed crew work together. The humans provided the survival expertise needed to operate in hostile conditions, while the aliens provided the scientific knowledge needed to understand what they found. Together, they were achieving things that neither species could accomplish. "Alone, set course for the Maelstrom region," Captain Martinez ordered. "Let's see what's been waiting for us out there." As the ship entered the dangerous region of space, the galaxy watched with interest. The humans had not just broken the classification scales for hostile worlds. They had opened up entirely new possibilities for exploration, development, and understanding. The universe had suddenly become both more dangerous and more accessible than anyone had imagined possible. 1 year after first contact, the galaxy had transformed in ways that no one could have predicted. The Forge World Institute stood as a testament to this change. Its gleaming structure built on the neutral moon of Kepler 442c, Director Katie Brown walked through the research facility's corridors, observing human and alien scientists working side by side on projects that would have been impossible just months earlier. "Director Brown," called Dr. Zethkar, the Altarian scientist who had first encountered humans at the Centauri station. "The preliminary results from the Vega system survey are remarkable. We've identified 3 potential Forge worlds in development." Dr. Brown examined the data on her tablet. The joint human-alien research teams had been systematically exploring regions of space that were previously considered too dangerous for investigation. What they found was changing the galaxy's understanding of life itself. "Show me the atmospheric readings," she requested. Dr. Zethkar activated a holographic display showing the 3 worlds. Each one displayed conditions that would have been considered uninhabitable before humanity's arrival. High radiation levels, extreme temperature variations, and violent atmospheric storms marked all 3 planets. More importantly, each world showed signs of life that was adapting to these extreme conditions. "The life forms we've detected are following similar patterns to early Earth development," Dr. Zethkar explained. "They're becoming more resilient with each generation. The hostile conditions aren't killing them. They're making them stronger." Dr. Rachel Stone, who had been appointed as the Institute's chief anthropologist, joined the discussion. "This supports our Forge world theory. Extreme conditions don't just allow life to survive. They actively improve life by eliminating weakness and rewarding adaptation." The implications were staggering. The galaxy might host dozens of Forge worlds, each one potentially developing apex species like humanity. The Institute's mission had expanded from studying Earth to identifying and monitoring these developing worlds. Throughout the galaxy, "We need to establish observation protocols," Dr. Brown decided. "If these worlds are producing advanced life forms, we need to be ready for contact when they achieve space travel." The military applications of Forge world knowledge had proven equally revolutionary. Admiral Korthax stood in the command center of the new Hegemony Defense Forces training facility, watching human instructors teach alien military personnel concepts that were completely foreign to galactic military doctrine. "The key principle," Captain Parker explained to a group of alien officers, "is that no plan survives contact with the enemy. Your job is not to execute a perfect plan. Your job is to adapt when the plan fails." The alien officers struggled with this concept. Their military training had focused on precise execution of detailed strategies. The idea that plans were expected to fail was disturbing to species that valued order and predictability. "But Captain," asked Commander Yultik of the Vegan Defense Corps, "how do we prepare for situations we cannot predict?" Colonel Walsh stepped forward. "You prepare by developing flexible thinking and multiple response options. When you encounter something unexpected, you don't panic. You adapt. The training exercises that followed were unlike anything in galactic military history. Human instructors created scenarios where nothing went according to plan, forcing alien officers to think creatively and respond to constantly changing situations. The results were remarkable. These training methods are producing officers who can handle crisis situations that would have paralyzed our previous commanders. Admiral Korthax reported to the Hegemony Council. The humans have taught us that unpredictability is not a problem to be solved. It's a condition to be managed. The economic transformation was equally profound. Dr. Martinez had established the Galactic Resource Management Council, bringing together economists from dozens of species to develop new approaches to resource allocation under uncertain conditions. Traditional galactic economics assumes stable conditions and predictable supply chains. Dr. Martinez explained to the Council, but the universe is not stable. Resources become scarce, supply chains break down, and new opportunities appear. Without warning, the Council had developed new economic models based on human experience with scarcity and abundance cycles. These models emphasize flexibility, redundancy, and sustainable practices that could survive disruptions. Your species has experience with economic systems that can handle complete societal collapse? Asked Trade Director Moldara. We've survived multiple economic collapses, Dr. Martinez confirmed. Each time, we learned to build more resilient systems. We developed local production capabilities, diverse trade networks, and emergency resource reserves. The psychological impact of humanity's integration had been the most challenging aspect of the transformation Dr. Martinez worked with alien psychologists to address the existential crisis that many species continue to experience. The knowledge that forged worlds exist has forced many civilizations to reconsider their fundamental assumptions about safety and security, explained Dr. Velmer, a prominent alien psychologist. Some species are experiencing what we might call cosmic anxiety. Dr. Martinez had developed therapeutic techniques specifically for species struggling with the new reality. The key insight is that the universe has always been dangerous. We've just become more aware of that danger. Awareness is the first step toward effective preparation. The therapy sessions focused on helping alien species develop what humans called adaptive resilience. Instead of trying to eliminate all risks, they learned to prepare for uncertainties and respond effectively when challenges arose. The most dramatic success story was the joint exploration mission to the Maelstrom region. Captain Lisa Martinez and her mixed crew had discovered not just ancient ruins, but an entire civilization that had somehow survived in conditions that should have been impossible. The Maelstrom inhabitants are another Forge World species, Captain Martinez reported to the Galactic Council. They've been isolated for thousands of years, adapting to conditions that make Earth look hospitable. The discovery of a second Forge World species confirmed humanity's theories about extreme environment evolution. The Maelstrom inhabitants had developed along different lines than humans, but they showed the same fundamental characteristics: extreme resilience, adaptive flexibility, and an ability to thrive under impossible conditions. This changes everything, announced Chief Counselor Threshmack. We're not just dealing with one exceptional species. We're dealing with a new category of life that may be more common than we realized. The Forge World Institute began planning expeditions to dozens of extreme environment worlds. Each mission included human crew members for survival expertise, alien crew members for scientific analysis, and newly trained mixed crews who could handle the unexpected challenges of Forge World contact. Ambassador Hyun stood on the observation deck of the Institute, watching ships depart for distant worlds that might host developing apex species. The galaxy had changed beyond recognition in just 1 year, and the changes were accelerating. Ambassador, Dr. Brown approached her, the Council has approved funding for 50 additional exploration missions. We're going to map every potential Forge world in the galaxy. Ambassador Shan smiled as she watched the ships disappear into hyperspace. A year ago, we were just trying to make peaceful contact with one alien species. Now we're helping the entire galaxy prepare for contact with dozens of potential apex species. The transformation was complete. Humanity had not just broken the classification scales for hostile worlds. They had opened the galaxy's eyes to the incredible diversity and resilience of life itself. The universe was more dangerous than anyone had imagined, but it was also more wonderful. And thanks to the lessons learned from Earth's Forge world development, the galaxy was finally ready to explore that wonderful, dangerous universe with confidence. As the stars wheeled overhead, Ambassador Chun realized that this was just the beginning. The galaxy had learned to survive and thrive in extreme conditions, and there were countless worlds waiting to be discovered. The humans had given the galaxy more than just new classification systems. They had given them the tools to explore infinity itself.